Good morning. Welcome to Saturday, March 25th, 2023. And welcome to Just Parlays with Chris King here on the Winners and Winers Network. Of course, I'm your host, Chris King, and have a lot to talk about today. The NCAA tournament rolling on as we've now reached the Elite Eight. I believe just last week we had 68 teams. It seems like, it goes by faster every year when you get right down to it. We also saw plenty of stuff on the ice, even though there were only 3 games last night. We saw a lot of blowouts across the NBA. There wasn't much in the way of what you would call competitive basketball by any stretch of the imagination. Just taking a quick look at what we saw last night. We saw the winning team score at least 116 points in every one of the 10 games in the association last night, including Memphis hanging 151 in a 37-point blowout of the Rockets, and the Bucks with 144 and a 28-point win against the Jazz. All told, there were only 2 games decided by single digits. Oh, sorry, 3. I forgot that Sacramento only won by 8. Meanwhile, Boston won by 25. Washington beat the Spurs by 12. Toronto beat the Pistons by 21. Like I said, Memphis won by 37. So plenty of one-sided basketball out there. Good to see T-Train's here this morning. I know T-Train very excited about the fact that, but you know who won't be playing? Anybody that had a 1 next to their name when this tournament started. First time since the field expanded to 64 teams back in Elite Eight. Alabama went down to San Diego State, 71-64. And Houston, a team that I think a lot of people were in the AAC tournament, was no match for Miami last night as they were beaten 89-75 by the Hurricanes. So, of course, literally millions of people, when they set their bracket up, set up their Elite Eight to have, a 2 seed, a 3 or 2. I know everybody out there had Florida Atlantic going to the regional final in the East region, a team that had won a grand total of 0. And so let's see, what do we have left? You take a look in the regional finals. We've got 3rd seed Kansas State. Kansas State got by Michigan State in overtime on Friday, and Thursday, and what looked like it was going to be the game of the tournament. And then Gonzaga. So Gonzaga will face UConn. That game it's supposed to tip at 8:49 p.m. on TBS. The 3rd seed afternoon. At 2:20, we'll have the South Region final, which, of course, everybody thought was going to be 5th-seeded San Diego State and 6th-seeded Creighton. I took Princeton plus 10, and, of course, Creighton had to win by 11 to mess that up for everybody. But we just reached about 5:05. It'll be 2nd-seeded Texas, who pretty much had their way with Xavier yesterday, taking out 5th-seeded Miami. And you look at the field here, and Miami's gotten better as the tournament's going on. They had their issues with Drake. They had to come back in the last 6.5 minutes or so of that game to beat the Bulldogs in the 5. Made Houston look pedestrian. And we're talking about a Houston team, that was one of, if not the best defensive team in the country. by a lot. You looked at what the total was set at for that game, and it was like 138 or 138.5, and I mean they blew past that early. But my 6 turnovers, and that's not really their style. Miami had 5 of their 6 players that played meaningful 7 points off the bench from their 3 players that played a combined 38 minutes. But, you know, Sasser, 2 of 8 from 3, finished with 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Houston shot just 37.5% from the field and went 9 of 31 from beyond the arc. Well, have you met the Alabama Crimson Tide? Because they were horrible yesterday. 32.4% from the floor from beyond the arc. Brandon Miller, you know, everybody wants to talk about how he's definitely going to be a lottery pick, could be in the top. 3 of 19 from the floor, 1 of 10 from beyond the arc. He was shut down, finished with just 9 points in 30. You got to give Alabama credit. They were down 9. They cut it to 2 in the final 48 seconds or so as Mark Sears went on a run by himself. But a lot of brick threes, and it proved costly down the stretch. T-Train says he likes his chances. He thinks they have the better team on both sides of the court. And Timmy will have a ball dealing with, especially with Sanogo and company in there. The best defensive team left, is it UConn or San Diego State? Well, that's a good question when you get right down to it. We've seen and let's face it, they've played very good basketball. Ken Pom now has them right on. Gonzaga's number 6. San Diego State is number 14. The Aztecs, according to Ken Pom, 4th in defensive efficiency, 20th in effective field goal percentage, 13th in effective field goal or defensive efficiency, 10th in effective field goal percentage at 45-1. They're also 25th in block percentage. The thing that did impress me about San Diego State is this. Matt Bradley was horrible yesterday, and they still managed to win the game. I mean, Bradley finished all trouble. The question remains, well, you look at the size factor, and the biggest guy, he only plays about half the minutes. Gene Ledee is 6'9", and Keyshawn Johnson is 6'7". Micah Parrish is 6'6", and Brad T-Train was talking about, you got Sanogo, he's 6'9". Klingon, when he plays, is 7'2". Caravan is 6'8". That can make a difference. The question is, who steps up? Oh, sorry, we were talking about defense there. Gonzaga, so you can tell it's a Saturday. Other than Timmy, there's a lot of versatility in what Gonzaga does. But yeah, Timmy's 6'10", but then Watson's 6. The question is, can Gonzaga survive if they get in foul trouble? because there's not a ton of depth on this team for Mark Few. We saw Malachi Smith against UCLA, but the question remains, do they have the depth? Can they overcome foul trouble? Because Connecticut is a very physical team, and they're an experienced team. This is, Dan Hurley's probably, I think you'd have to say it's his best year in Connecticut. When you get right down to it. And can Gonzaga defend? Because we saw them have lapses for or stretches against UCLA where Jaquez pretty much dominated that basketball game. And that's a big thing that kept them in it. Because if it wasn't for Jaquez, I don't think that UCLA was going to be in that game for a long stretch. Because you look late. And the other thing is free throw shooting. Gonzaga was terrible at the line. They could have put the game away multiple times down the stretch, but went just 9 to get it done. You look and they were up 10 with 2:40 to go, and then all of a sudden you look and there's 12 seconds left and they were down before. The hell are you shooting that? And then it went in, so they were like, okay, well, that was cool. But you have to wonder, would UCLA have won that game had Bona? We would have been talking about a completely different situation, what we've got now. I like UConn tonight. I think that, T-Train, the big concern is, what can they do to stay out of foul trouble, because they are 320th in the nation, and that's something you want to avoid. And can they shoot from the perimeter? They've had good success with that. The good part is, they didn't have to tax their guys in the win over after falling behind early in that game. They were down 17 at the half, and you could pretty much turn the lights out at that point. But nobody played more than the 32 minutes. Andre Jackson Newton played 31. Sanogo only had to play 24 minutes, and he was effective in those 24 minutes. 18 points and 8 boards, plus a couple of blocks. T-Train saying his pick for the day is Kansas State and Florida Atlantic over 144. Yeah, Kansas State has been putting up a lot of points in this tournament. We saw 98 against a good man. For as well as they've played in the tournament, their defense kind of lapsed in that game because Michigan State, put up quite. Just take a look at the box score here if it decides to show me. Michigan State shot 18 of 38 from 2. They were 13 of 25 from 3, and they won the rebounding battle. Is going to have to deal with, because Florida Atlantic, for not being a team that everybody's overly familiar with, Dusty May's team, despite not having a ton of size. We saw it in the win over Tennessee. We saw it against Memphis. They've got one guy that has Love Golden at 7-1, but these guys crashed the boards, and that's something that can't be overstated. You give yourself second and third opportunities from the field, and it's going to make you putting up points against a good defense. We saw it with the way they rallied against Tennessee. We talked about the Volunteers. They're wondering, Were they going to be able to get enough defense and stuff? And Tennessee lost the rebounding battle to Florida Atlantic 40-36. And it's not just one guy getting the rebound. 6. Golden had 7. Nick Boyd had 8 in 23 minutes, and he's a 6'3" guy. Brandon Weatherspoon had 7 rebounds in 21 minutes. He's 6'4". So they get rebounds from all over the place. The one thing that I'm worried about with Kansas State is how Marquise Noel reacts after injuring his ankle. I know he was against Michigan State. The question remains, we're now 48 hours removed from that. Can he still do everything he's done? I hope so, because it's going to be a tough game. Like T-Train said, it's basically a coin flip. It could go either way. It depends. Can Florida State still not, or Florida Atlantic, still knock down threes, because their point shooting. That Dusty Mays team, you look at their shoot, they shoot 44% of their attempts from the field come from 3-point range. And it's all well and good when they go in. The problem is, can they adjust if those shots? Now, T-Train, I got to ask you, because I saw that in the Discord that you weren't on YouTube anymore. Are we back to the idiot trolls again that are causing issues? So you went Roger Murtaugh and said you're too old for this. I don't do daily videos like Mason and some of that do, because, well, A, they're time consuming for me, because I have to go through and do all the research and everything. I don't have the patience for that kind of crap. Let's see. Before we move on to the picks for the day, let's see what we got to look at today. Well, I see matchups probably coming in the Mile High City, where the Bucks and the Nuggets square off in a battle of the top teams in their respective conferences. Suns fan Kevin Durant looking like he'll return in the middle of the week. They're targeting Wednesday's game against the Timberwolves, which full strength, as they were gunned down last night by Sacramento, 135-127. In the Pacific, they're 38-35. Of course, when you look at the standings, nobody went into the season saying, "Yeah, you know who's going to win the Pacific Division? The Sacramento Kings." The regular season, the Kings with a 5.5 game lead in the Pacific, their first winning season in 2 decades, and it looks like they're going to move on and win the division. They fight against Utah. Both teams playing the second game of back-to-back. But this is a Sacramento team. Domantas Sabonis has been great. Kevin Huerter has been very good. Keegan Murray has been still De'Aaron Fox. So he should have told me yesterday he didn't have to shoot the ball 15 times in 21 minutes because he's a point guard. But hey, he had 2 assists. So I guess there's that. He's a good weapon off the bench. Davion Mitchell's coming up. The Kings have been surprising. It's nice to see relevant basketball from that franchise. It's been so long. Morning, Bill. Yeah, I like both those teams, and I'll get into those here in just a minute. But yeah, I agree with you. Um, I know that some of it is recency bias because we've seen Gonzaga, blow games repeatedly. When it comes to maybe they flew under the radar a little bit because they're a 3 seed instead of a 1. Maybe it's because St. Mary's played well in the West Coast Conference this year. So, but until I see them actually, win a tournament, and I know that's easy to say because there's only one team out of the 363 of them there are wins at the end of the year in the NCAA tournament, but still, they found ways to lose games, and that's a big factor, and that's true about the Discord. And if you haven't checked out the Discord yet, guys, you should. A lot of good people in there. I know Captain Bryce in there, Z is in there, T Train's in there, from Winners and Miners, Mason and Dave Delano, and once in a while you'll see the Steamroller in there. A lot of good information that'll help you put some money in your pocket at the end of the day, and that's what's important. Is it's not about how you get the information; or who you get it from. It's about the fact that it's all about that we've got a lot of good people in there that make it entertaining and put out good quality information. As the rest of the show, of course, make sure you, like T-Train said, hit the like button, ring the bell, subscribe, do all that stuff so you know when we're here. Of course, on Saturday mornings. I'm going to see if maybe we can get it where we'll be more regular during baseball season because with baseball than there is with some of the other sports. But we'll see how that works. Of course, the 60% off premiums. That's not just single games. That's parlays. That's if you want to subscribe for a sport for an entire season, or if you want to subscribe for a week and save 60%, whatever package you get, and it all works out pretty well in the end. And like I said, only 6 games in the NBA. There's 2 games today in college hoops. The NHL's got a full slate, 15 games this evening. So plenty of hockey for you puckheads out there. And, with the NHL regular season winding down as well. As we look down the standings here, obviously Boston has clinched a spot. So it's Carolina in the East. The Blue Jackets in the East, and then in the West, the Blackhawks, the Ducks, and the Sharks all out. If you look at the wild card races, wins for the last wild card spot in the Eastern Conference, Washington is 4 points back. Ottawa is 5 points back. Buffalo 6 points back. Detroit's probably dead games to play. In the Western Conference, your wild card teams going into today, the Kraken and the Winnipeg Jets. Nashville 5 points behind Winnipeg. I'm sorry, this afternoon against the Seattle Kraken. Calgary 6 points back of Winnipeg, and then pretty much bar the door. Everybody else is pretty much dead. Vancouver 16 back. Arizona's just waiting to be officially eliminated. They're 19 back. And then we already talked about the doormats. But with that said, we can move on to the important part of the show. And we'll start with 3 for the money, which cashed in for us last week. Well, then you didn't see it. So we'll start with the 3 for the money, and we'll start with the Seattle Kraken, who are aggravated after losing to Nashville. The other very low-scoring game, a lot of checking, a lot of tight defensive zone work. Shots on goal were not big in that game. Seattle had a 28-24 advantage. Couldn't light the lamp. I think that Seattle will bounce back because, like I said, they're holding the top wildcard spot by just a single point over Winnipeg going into tonight. The Kraken want to get a split. I think the Kraken will take advantage of that to get the win over a Nashville team that's, they traded away a lot of players at the deadline. And they still play decent hockey, which is strange because normally when you see teams do that, they go right in the tank. But that hasn't been the case for the Preds. Unfortunately for them, we talked about Kansas State, Florida Atlantic. Kansas State has played very good basketball. We saw that, they can make plays, but in crunch time games, alley-oop pass by Noel when he was arguing with Coach Jerome Tang to break the tie against Michigan State. Florida Atlantic plays a lot of teams that play isolation basketball because Florida Atlantic's opponents have assisted on just 34.7% of the buckets against the Owls in the country. Why is that interesting? Well, because they're playing Kansas State. We talked about Noel having 19 assists the other night, 46 assists in the first 3 games of the tournament on 63.9% of their made field goals. That's the 6th highest rate in the country. So you're definitely looking at a clash of styles. Actually, Egad shares the basketball. That's a big issue for the Owls. They're not used to seeing teams do that. And nobody passes the ball. They'd rather, just jack it up there and, it's whip it down off the rebound or the inbound, and a distinct clash of styles. And I just don't know if Florida Atlantic has enough magic left. I know they got by Tennessee. But they were helped by the fact that Tennessee played horrible fundamental basketball. They didn't get to the line much. They were 7 of 12. They shot 37.5% from 2-point range. They were 6 of 23 from 2. None of their guys that you would expect to contribute did much of anything. Nakamura was 2 of 7. From 2. Josiah Jordan-James 3 of 11 from the field. Vescovi was 3 of 11. They just couldn't buy a bucket. But this is a Kansas State team that they're relevant again. Tang has done a great job with if they can avoid turnovers, which has been a problem for them at times this season. They're 263rd in the country in turnover percentage. If they can avoid turnovers tournament. Kansas State will go to the Final Four because, they've got a lot of guys that are experienced senior. Tomlin's a junior. And Gesson is a junior. Masood, who had that big jumper down the stretch in overtime to give them a 4-point lead. Senior. This is not a young basketball team. They've got a lot of experience. And with Noel leading the way, he finished second in the nation. They're a dangerous team. As long as they stay out of trouble with the fouls and as long as they avoid turnovers, they're going to be in good shape here. The Kings over the Jets. We talked a little bit about Los Angeles battling with Vegas for the top spot in the Pacific. They're 4 points back. They have a game in hand. They're 8-0-2 in their last 10 games. It has 96, and Edmonton is right behind them with 90. The Oilers have been coming out of late as well. You have to look. It's tough to have faith in a team like the Jets right now, who are just 5-4-1 in their last 10. They've won back-to-back games, but they haven't looked overly impressive at their numbers. And that's the problem is the Jets, they beat Arizona 2-1. They beat the Ducks 3-2. You're not beating, the elite of the National Hockey League when it comes to those. Because going from being the Ducks and the Coyotes to taking on the Kings is a massive jump in competition level, to say the least. Let's face it, the Kings have played good hockey. They trade away Jonathan Quick. Of course, now he's back in the Pacific Division because he went to Vegas. But, the Kings are playing well. Phoenix Copley has been good. Korpisalo has been good since he came over from Columbus. If you throw out that shootout loss to Vancouver last week. And I think playing at home and with that, we can move on to 4 for the show. And there's the other game from today in college hoops. We talked about it already. Timmy's going to have to get support from other guys because we've seen Sanogo and company do the job in this tournament. I like the way UConn has been. They've got good weapons. They're tough on the defensive end. They make teams work on every possession. They're not going to run and gun and try and play them. They're second in the nation in offensive rebounding percentage. They're in the top 10 in assist percentage as well. And I just like them a little bit better than Gonzaga, who's here out. I think the Bulldogs will be there and hang in the game, but I think just in the end that, size and the toll that game against you proves to be too much for Mark Few's squad. Because let's face it, they're fortunate to be here at this point after what we saw. Canucks, the Stars still trying to hang on in the Central. They hold a 1-point advantage over Minnesota. Colorado just 1 point behind the Wild, so 2 points back to the Stars. So that's going to be a wild who finishes where in the 3 guaranteed playoff spots in that division. Who ends up playing the wild card, who ends up facing off against each other. Going to be some good hockey down the stretch from there. Vancouver, they're still way out of the playoff picture and not really relevant. They still give up goals at a ridiculous rate. They've given up 264 goals on the season. The two teams in the attention, that's the Sharks and the Ducks. In the East, there's three other teams that have given up more goals than them. Columbus, who's eliminated. Montreal, who's going to be eliminated. Not that far away from being eliminated. It just boils down to the fact Dallas is good in both ends of the ice. And that carries them to the win. For the Nets, we saw the Heat beat the Knicks the other day. Brooklyn's lost 5 in a row. They blew a 8-point lead with 2 minutes to go against Cleveland the other night, and is back. So he won't be playing anytime soon, it sounds like. You're basically trying to rely on Bridges and Dinwiddie and Cameron Johnson, who Dallas, but they had supporting cast players there. Dinwiddie was playing second fiddle to Doncic, and Devin Booker, and they had Chris Paul. Now you're trying to rely on these 3 guys to be the anchors for your team, and it just hasn't worked out. The Nets are going in the wrong direction. They've probably played themselves guaranteed field and are stuck basically in a play-in spot at this point. I don't like their chances in this one. I'll take the Heat at home. Brooklyn also playing the front end. It's a tough ask for a team that's going the wrong direction at the wrong time of the year. And the Rangers over the Panthers. The Rangers, it's a crowded field there. Carolina has 100 points. New Jersey has 98. The Rangers have 94. So they're pretty well locked into at least having the third guaranteed. The Islanders are 11 points behind them, holding the top wild card. Florida, 1 point behind Pittsburgh for the second wild card. It's about 6-2. Goaltending has been a major issue for the Panthers all season long. They've given up 247 goals in 72 games. The Rangers, Igor Shesterkin has been great. Sergei Bobrovsky, not so much. And I know that this game is in Florida. It's in Sunrise, where the Panthers are 21-11. 11-4, but I just watched them. Like I said, don't care if the game's on the road. They're 21-8-6 away from Madison Square Garden. I'll take the Rangers, especially in a little bit of plus money. And with that, it takes us to the shot in the dark. Now, remember, you don't have to play all of these. You can pick out some of them. You can mix them with the other ones if you want. There weren't a ton of NBA lines up, which was weird because you'd think that they'd be up early, but they weren't. UConn and Gonzaga, I think I'll end up over the total on this tournament. UConn has hung 87, 70, and 88 points in their 3 wins. Gonzaga has hung 82, 84, and 79 in the tournament. You look at the totals for Gonzaga so far: 152, 165, 155 in their 3 wins. UConn, like I said, I think Gonzaga is going to get their points here, but I think UConn's going to probably hang at least 80 against that suspect Bulldogs defense. Which has been 76 the other night, despite missing guys. I think UConn can get to 80 and help this one over the line. In the National Hockey League, but these teams still have to play each other. Columbus has been terrible, 9-21-5 on the road. They don't have Patrick Lane now, who's hurt. I think it's going to be Elvis Merzlikins, who's back from Latvia now. But that doesn't mean it's going to be any better for the Blue Jackets. The other day, 5-4. But I'll put a little more faith in the team that's slightly better than the Blue Jackets. Nice. Florida Atlantic, and I actually meant to put this as over. I just didn't. I forgot to change it last night because it was late. But I think T-Train's right. I think this game ends up over the total given what State against Michigan State. I think that this game, both teams should end up in the high 70s, just because it'll be one of those games where create opportunities. I think it'll end up somewhere probably in the low 150s, maybe the mid 150s, depending on a big factor. Because whenever you get points when the clock stops, it helps with that. But I think it'll end up over the total. I should have switched that. I didn't think about it this morning because I wasn't fully awake. Total, the Maple Leafs and the Hurricanes under 6. You look at the fact that if you look at the stats, it comes to goals against. Just taking a quick look here. Yeah, second in the league at 2.54 goals a game. The Maple Leafs not that far behind them earlier in the week. Toronto comes in 7th in the league at 2.72. Both these teams and injuries have taken a toll on both teams as far as offense goes. We saw Ryan O'Reilly's been out with a broken finger. For the Leafs, Svechnikov, that's a big blow for them. I think this will be a 3-2 type of game and end up falling short of the number when all is said and done. Could even be 2-1. We've seen that happen before. The Sharks over the Flames. This is just because I've watched Calgary find ways to lose games to miserable hockey teams. Of late, we saw them lose to the Black. We watched them get routed by the Kings. We saw them lose to Dallas. We saw them lose a game to the Flyers. We saw them lose to Ottawa earlier in the year where they were up 3-0 in the third period and lost 4-3. They just came off a 3-2 loss to Vegas. About this Flames team. They had high expectations. They failed to meet them. Ooh, the sports card biz. Good luck with that, T-Train. Thanks for being here. But yeah, the Sharks I'm going to take tonight over the Flames. I can't trust Calgary. San Jose is a decent high teams in the division, and Calgary is just 16-15-4 at home. Where have you gone, Jacob Markstrom? Because he was great. The Clippers over the Pelicans. The Clips hanging in a playoff spot. The Pelicans just trying to get by. When you look at these standings, still down near the bottom of the West. I know injuries have taken a toll. They missed Ingram for a while. They're currently 9th in the West, but they're just a half game ahead of Dallas for a spot in the playing field. They're just a game ahead, kind of faded off now. Portland is 3.5 games back at the final spot in the playing tournament. The Clips, they don't have Paul George. Again, because, of course, he was a dangerous basketball team. I think that LA can get the win at home in that one. Don't usually talk about the XFL, but how about it? I look for the Battlehawks and the Vipers to go offense. They don't play defense. And Seattle should be able to take advantage of the fact that Vegas doesn't play defense to help this one go over the number. I like that AJ McCarron is done with, like I said, they've got a lot of names, but they haven't led to success on the defensive side of the ball. Early game, the Red Wings and the Flyers. I just don't trust Philadelphia. When you think they're going to play well, they play terribly. I know they've won 2 in a row, but they're weak offensively. They're below 500 at home. Detroit still has 9 points behind Pittsburgh at this point. They do have a game in hand, but they've stumbled of late. But still, when you have hope, it's something. And the Red Wings, the Flyers were a team in disarray at the trade deadline. I don't see it getting any better here. I'm going to take the Red Wings at plus money to win that contest. The other XFL game today, Orlando over Seattle. Seattle comes off a win last week over Arlington, who was unbeaten. Or Houston, I'm sorry. But Orlando's been better offensively. And now they've made the switch at quarter, made Orlando look relevant last week. And like we talked about previously with Vegas, they lit up Vegas' defense for 32 points. I think that Orlando can cover, but you're getting almost 10 points in this one, which is a big number in the XFL. I look for the Guardians to find a way to get the win, or not to get the win outright, but to cover the line in half in this one. Seattle has had their moments offensively with Ben DiNucci and Josh Gordon and company, but they've also had stretches where they looked absolutely horrible. I'll take the points in a situation like that. And the Nets over the Heat, going over the total. Miami's been going over the number repeatedly. We've talked about the Nets having major issues on the defensive end of the floor. And that should lead to another high-scoring game that ends up over this number. Wraps up the show for this week. I apologize for the internet issues. That's Spectrum at its finest. Where I'd like to drop in and out here because there are not any other internet providers that put up any kind of speed in this area for some reason. It's kind of like that South Park episode, but I digress. Enjoy your Saturday. Don't forget to use the promo code on the bottom of the screen. Save yourself 60% off your premium plays. College hoops, since we've gotten to the NCAA and the NIT and the CBI and all that. And by the time we come back next week, we'll have started looking forward to that. Hopefully you're looking forward to the Elite Eight tonight and anything else that you're looking to tune into. But that'll do it for today. Thanks for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Good luck with your bets. We will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. channel. For the Winners, I'm Chris King. We'll see you next time.